Welcome to One on One on God 101. Our guest today is the author, Erin Port, who has just come out with this new book. It's called Tiny Tweaks, Happy Life. And here's where it all says what's going down here. Simple changes to create space for what matters. Erin, welcome.
I am delighted to be here. Thank you so much, Julie, for having me.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. Now, not only are you an author, but you also are a podcaster, mother of four children, and you are the founder of let me get this right, um, the Simple Purposeful Living brand.
That's
Okay.
right. I should have considered what a tongue twister that was when I made it.
That's okay. Makes it more fun. It's an exercise for us. Now, given that this is a book that says tiny tweaks, people feel like, oh, I have to overhaul my life. But you say, actually, you don't. How is it in the tiny tweaks that we can actually see big changes?
Well, our brain craves a big solution. That just is part of what life is, right? Like we think, oh, if I just have a big solution, it's going to bring instant relief. But what often happens is we get in this vicious cycle of I'm overwhelmed, big solution. It doesn't work because it doesn't take into consideration our reality, our time constraints, our schedule, and then we fail, if you will, and then we start all over again, and then we just feel like we're stuck. We can't make any changes, and we feel like we are paralyzed in this life. And so for me, my passion is helping busy women understand that if we allow ourselves the grace to start small with just a tiny tweak, it can have a ripple effect on the rest of our life. I call it kind of like the snowball effect, right? Just that little bit of momentum and that evidence that says, actually, I can make a change. And that change then leads to another change. And we just iterate. I think of it like riding a bike, where when you're riding a bike, you go a little to the left and a little to the right, and it keeps you on course as we're going down life's journey. And that's what I think of when I think of tiny tweaks.
And I can't help but think of biblically, it starts out as a mustard seed.
Mm-hmm.
And it just flourishes. What was happening in your own personal life that led you on this path to this revelation that, something's got to give and it's going to start with tiny tweaks?
Yes, I share in the book about when we adopted our youngest child. He was 25 months, and we knew he would have special needs. But when they handed him to me in the stuffy boardroom in Hefei, China, he was weighing just 19 pounds. He had never eaten solid food. He was nonverbal, a myriad of medical diagnoses that we didn't even know. In that time, it also happened to be the pandemic, so that added a layer. And so one particular day, we had just finished a feeding session, and as often happened, we'd spend an hour trying to get him to eat. And then because of some things we didn't know at the time, he would often vomit that back up. And because he was so severely malnourished, it felt like a matter of life and death to me. And so I got him cleaned up, laid him down in his crib, and I just collapsed in the dark hallway and I started to weep. I felt so much shame that I couldn't help him in the way that I thought I should as his mama bear. I had three other children that I was taking care of, a business, life, the pandemic, and I just felt so overwhelmed, like I was drowning. And I heard God say in that moment, like, you don't have to carry it all. And that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to will myself through this season, trying to survive through this season. And what I heard him say is, what is the next right thing? And I think that that's really important because sometimes just because we hear something from God doesn't mean that he's going to bring us out of that season tomorrow, right? The season continued. But what that moment did for me is it started to help me to see, like, what is the tiny little tweak? What is the tiny little thing I need right now? And for me in that moment, it was going and washing my face and brewing myself a cup of coffee because I was exhausted, going outside and feeling the sun on my face. And then from there, another tiny tweak. And what I realized was I could shape my perspective in a season that was challenging and learn something along the way. And that was that these little tiny changes could really change the way that I approached my life, even in a difficult season.
It makes me think of the oxygen mask story. You know, they always say you have to put yours on first so that you can be there for your child or whoever else, for others.
Mhm.
So where do you recommend we start? Like, what's like a good baby step anyone can take to start feeling the release?
I think I always tell people awareness is your superpower. When you are aware of your life, of your circumstances, then we can intentionally move forward. So, our brain naturally filters out what it doesn't think is important. It's kind of like the red car theory. Before I had a red car, I didn't realize how many other people drive red cars, right? And it's because my brain filtered out that information as not important until it was. So, I always tell people, be aware over the next 24 hours. Figure out where in your day does it feel a little bit more challenging. Maybe there's some friction. And then ask yourself, what's a small, tiny tweak I can make? So let me give you an example. Our mornings, as many people with children's mornings, was a little bit friction. And what I realized was, that I had my phone in my hand while I was trying to conduct the morning rituals, right? And so I made a tiny tweak just to leave my phone on the plug or on the hook or in the wherever it is, out of sight, out of mind. And I just left that out. And that tiny tweak helped me to be present in the morning for my morning rituals with my kids. You know, it made our mornings easier. They made them more joyful. I came to the morning more present and available just by that tiny tweak of leaving my phone in the bathroom. And that's what I mean by the power of just a tiny little change and the ripple effect it can have. So just asking yourself, where in my day do I feel friction? And what's the smallest change I can make and try? And then try it and see. And that's the beauty of tiny tweaks. If it's not what works, then you can try something else the next day, just like balancing on a bike, a little to the left, a little to the right. We'll iterate till we find just right.
These little phones we have, that
Mm.
causes a lot of friction. I
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful to hear you say that. I find when I lose my cell phone, I'm at my happiest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, talk to me. You write about the happiness square.
Mm-hmm.
What is the happiness square?
Well, I think I've always decided that unless we define happiness for ourselves, the world will define happiness for us. And so, as part of this book, where we're creating space for what matters, we first have to determine what matters for ourselves. And so, I go into the research of what actually happiness looks like, and it's connection. Of course, with others, relationships, friendships, family relationships, purpose and passion, that's like your hobbies. For me and you, that might be our work, right? Something that you're super passionate about. Rest and recharge, learning what actually makes you feel rested and recharged, and then nature. And so, in each of these quadrants, I talk about it in the book. In the chapter at length, I share examples from real people in the real world of like how that manifests itself in their daily life. And then the goal is then at the end of the chapter, you'll be able to plug in at a daily and granular level what makes you happy in these quadrants. Because again, awareness is your superpower. And the more that you know what makes you happy, then as we're tweaking our life, we can be incorporating these things intentionally to bring more joy and satisfaction.
Now, as you talk about, having this self-awareness of what makes you happy and making space for that, you also talk about in your book about physically decluttering,
Mm-hmm.
which we could all do.
Mm-hmm.
But the garage can look daunting, or your closet, or your even just your closet rod. How do you begin with a little tweak to physically declutter?
Well, I always say to start with a decluttering box. And many of us have boxes coming to our doorstep on most days. And so, literally, when I undo the box, I'll write declutter on it and put it somewhere that's out of sight but not unattainable to reach. So, I keep mine in my garage. But it's for those things. I have four growing children. And inevitably, just this morning, my son walked downstairs and said, Mom, my pants are tight. They fit yesterday, they're tight today. And then he plopped them on the ground. Well, what will happen if I don't have a decluttering bin is I pick those up, forgetting that they don't fit, put them in my laundry basket, wash them, put them back in his drawer, and we repeat the cycle. And so, a space where we can, like a tiny tweak that we can start with, is having this bin So when things like that, or you get another water bottle and you don't need this one anymore, that clutter has a space to go as a holding ground. Once that box gets full, then you can take it to donation. So that's always where I tell people to start. Decluttering is really important, and I think growing up we didn't practice that as much. Of like, we learned how to clean, but we live in an age where we're getting stuff all the time. And so I always relate it to digestion. Just like when we eat food, we have to expel. Just things are coming into our house, we have to expel things out. Otherwise, we become bloated and uncomfortable.
Uh, totally. I have a friend who has a rule: if she buys a new shirt, something's coming off that closet rod before that new shirt gets hung on. Because when you don't declutter, and that's a tiny tweak you could do like in real
Mm-hmm.
time, then you can't see what you have, and everything gets wrinkled too. Like the collar on the shirt gets all
Yes.
mushed. So yes, declutter physically and also mentally. Do you ever think of doing like a Zoom or a workshop, so women all over the country can just have this meeting with you and hear these tips? Because they might think like, oh, opening a book, who has time?
Yes. So if they join my launch team, we will be having some Zoom sessions. I love even workshopping in my DMs or if they email me, because I often say sometimes as we're talking, see your idea sparked of your friend, right? And sometimes we get so close to our life and our problem that we can't see the forest through the trees. And so I always tell women, if you're not sure, talk to a friend, grab coffee, make a phone call and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, because oftentimes others can speak and give feedback into a situation that we might not even think about. Recently, I do podcasting in my closet, and I sit on the floor usually because it has the best sound. But I'm getting older, and my legs were crisscross applesauce, were uncomfortable. And my friend said, "Why don't you just roll in your office chair?" And I was like, "That's so small," but I didn't think of it because I was so close to the problem. So if you can't figure it out, ask a friend, like, hey, what do you think about this? They might just have an idea or spark an idea for you.
I love that. A lot of times when busy people, we look at our to-do list as it's
Mm,
like you can't get off that treadmill. It never gets shorter. And what many of us end up doing is sacrificing self-care.
mhm.
What are little tiny tweaks we can do, basic self-care to get this snowball effect so we we are taking care of ourselves?
I think it starts with knowing what brings you rest and joy, and then scheduling it in, putting it on your to do list. I am the queen. If you look at my calendar, walk is on my to do list every single day because I have this fascination with crossing things off my to do list. So I am going to cross walk off the to do list. And so putting those things on your calendar, making sure, I love, like, for me, friendship and friend time is really important. So I have a standing date on my calendar every Thursday. That way it's planned and it's in my calendar so I know it's going to get done. And then I think too, just I think going to bed at a decent time, plugging your phone in a different room so that we're not. I found that I was doom scrolling and I would go to bed way later, waking up later. It just was this horrible opposite snowball effect. And so putting your phone away 30 minutes before you go to bed, it's so simple, but so impactful on your life.
And I know you're a woman of God.
Mm.
How do you see God in less in a minute? Where does God fit into all of this for us?
I think God designed us to be purposeful ambassadors for the gospel. And I think when we simplify and make space for what matters, tiny tweak by tiny tweak, we have more space to do the work God designed us to do, as opposed to just managing so much of life. And so that's my passion, is to help people create space to go and do the things God has asked them to do. And I'm very passionate about that.
Amen to that. Erin Port, thank you. The book is again called Tiny Tweaks, Happy Life, Simple Changes to Create Space for What Matters. And it's available now wherever books are sold. Thank you, Erin.
Oh, it was my true honor. Thank you so much, Julie. I appreciate you.
God bless you.